If you're having trouble with time on the SAT or ACT, should you do the hard questions first and then do the easy ones? In short, no. And if you want to know why, stay tuned. Let's take, for example, the ACT math test, though what I'm going to say applies really to many different parts of the SAT and ACT. So in the ACT math test, you've got 60 questions, which I'm going to represent by this bar. So 60 questions, and they follow a pretty regular order of difficulty. The first ones are usually easy, the middle usually get medium, and the last bit are hard. And so for many students, they do pretty well. We'll use a highlighter. They do pretty well, up to maybe here, and then they start struggling with time. And so they're able to answer these questions pretty effectively. But then things get a little bit dicey towards the end. Maybe they got to start rushing. Maybe towards the end they got to make total random guesses because they're just not able to get to that last chunk. And this can apply in, say, SAT reading. There's no order of difficulty in SAT reading, but perhaps you're able to do the first 4 passages successfully and have to start to rush towards the end. But no matter which section it is, when we have a section that has an order of difficulty, such as the ACT math, a lot of students will say, well, look, I'm running out of time on these questions. So should I do these first? Because I don't have time to get to these hard ones, and I really need the time to answer them. So should I skip ahead to those and do those first, and then come back and do the easy ones at the end? And the answer is no, that's not a good idea at all. Now, it's not totally illogical. It seems to make kind of sense in that, okay, these take a lot of time, and so I need the time to answer them, and so I should not have to rush. I don't want to have to rush on them. I want to be able to consider them properly. But think about the real problem here, which is your struggles with timing in the section as a whole. Does doing these questions first fix that problem? Not really. It just moves the time issue around, right? It takes the time issue away from the hard problems and pushes it into the easy. And that's where it gets very dangerous, because if you're spending a lot of time on hard questions, you might still get some of those wrong, and then now you have to rush or guess on easy questions. That's a terrible trade that we never want to make. And that's why you want to do the easy questions first. Always lock those in, then do your mediums. Then with what time you have left, you worry about the hard questions. In sections of the SAT and ACT without an order of difficulty, which is basically all of them except for the math tests, the same idea applies in that, though you're not going to know about how hard the question will be just based on its number, if you start doing a question that looks very complicated or difficult or challenging or seems like it's going to be time consuming, you're much better off circling it, skipping it, coming back to it later in the test, and moving on, right? Getting to all the stuff that you can do pretty easily, get those out of the way, lock in those points, and then come back at the end and go to any questions that are particularly hard for you. If you take SAT reading, just again as an example, there's 52 questions in SAT reading. No order of difficulty, but let's say for whatever reason, a good 8 of them are really hard for you. You're trying to do them and you just can't make heads or tails of them, and you're sitting there and working on those 8 questions. It makes more sense to leave those to the end, circle them, even if you started them, circle them, come back to them later, clear out all the easy stuff, lock in those points, and then come back to these 8. So whether it's a section with an order of difficulty, or whether it's a section where there is no order of difficulty, but there are questions that are harder than the typical, and the ones that you can tell are just going to be really time consuming, don't do those first. You're not helping yourself. You're actually hurting yourself if you prioritize those. Instead, prioritize the easy and mediums, get those points, lock in that foundation. Then with the time you have left, go ahead and take a look at those harder questions.